Thank you everybody for coming. We've got our first session today, the keynote on interior innovation, spatial and material experiences with Joyce Wang, the founder of Joyce Wang Studio. She's trained in architecture and material science at MIT, holding a master's degree in interior design from the Royal College of Art. US-born Chinese designer Joyce Wang established her practice in Hong Kong in 2011. Since then, she's distinguished herself in luxury hospitality and high-end residential projects all over the world. The portfolio is brilliant. Her studio is renowned for its commitment to material innovation, developing bespoke textiles and features and furnishings and finishes that reflect a relentless pursuit of creativity and craftsmanship. Without further ado, I introduce you to Joyce Wang, the founder of Joyce Wang Studio. Big round of applause, please. Welcome.
Hey guys. Hey everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. This is the point where I act really humble and say, I'm not supposed to be here. I shouldn't really be speaking to you about this, but I am the most qualified person because a lot of people are surprised when I tell them I have a material science degree from MIT. The graduates there alongside me, they're researching in labs and doing research. And for me, I went from kind of that scene to now picking materials. So I studied actually nanomechanics, which is how materials behave when nanopressure is applied to it for about 4 years. I know, very useful. But now I do something even more useful, which is to pick out these materials. And I want to start by thanking Yoko, who invited me here today to talk about materials and memory. And for me, my first memory of Yoko actually is when she first wrote about our work in Frame magazine. And I want to thank her for that because it's really no small thing to have somebody legitimate, a publication that's legitimate, write about somebody who may not be so legitimate, but what it does is it appeals to people like Lorraine, who's now sitting here, working with me on my team, to come and work with me. So I think that is, to me, the real power of somebody like Yoko. So thank you for that. I'm going to start with saying I am somewhat of a geek. If you've been geeking out to Elon Musk podcasts like I have, the one with Lex Friedman and himself, you'll know that death is the loss of memory. And I'm very sorry to start this morning with such a morbid note, but I will play an even more morbid trailer for you, which is from one of my all-time favorite movies, The Shining. So this is not a trailer for The Shining. This is a trailer for Room 237, which is a breakdown of The Shining itself. It tells you how Stanley Kubrick actually sculpted the various scenes and the meaning behind it. So it's an expose, a breakdown of each of those scenes, the composition, all of that. And to me, there's nothing like materials that can evoke more vivid memories. And this carpet, seeing it for the first time, I mean, this is the only thing that appears in this trailer. This carpet left an indelible memory in me that I think, thank you so much for inviting me here to talk, because I really only realized, I think every interior we try to create, it brings me back to this film. It brings me back to wanting to create spaces that speak to people in the same way that a carpet can elude memory. So for me, it really stayed with me forever and ever. And watching that film brings me back to this specific memory. This is me and a friend from boarding school on a dreary day in England in our guardian's home. And he was milling about. He didn't want to deal with us. So he put on the TV, and we did not know what was coming up. I mean, for the next 2.5 hours of The Shining, we were closing our eyes and just in total shock of what we were about to see. So there's really nothing like memory, nothing like materials and seeing that carpet that can evoke a more vivid, and there's really nothing to it. I mean, this carpet, if you look at it, but when it's folded in with narrative, it's something that can speak so loud. You can see this is a space that maybe some of you have gone to, maybe you've noticed the carpet from inside, but if you haven't, I think like Kubrick's movies, this is something that I really aspire to for my spaces, that every time you go, you notice something different. It's not an obvious hue, it's not Disneyland, but it's something that's layered in so deeply that when you go into the main dining space, you might not have seen that room. This is Mott 32 in Hong Kong in the basement of a bank building, a restaurant that I worked on 15 years ago. And this photo, you don't see that room that I just showed because it's around a corner. It used to be where all the AC machines are. We carved it out so that it could really transport people into a completely different space. So this is Lorraine. She's in the Art Material Library. And I think from really kind of reflecting on what I do, my job is to transport people. And it starts with the Material Library. It's a very fun place to be in our studio, but it's also the most painstaking because it's like a garden. You really have to weed out the bad in order for the good to grow. And we go through the exercise of going through our material library, figuring out what materials we want to use, because once we have the right pieces in place, then it's almost like a domino effect. Then the team will start using the right things and will then start to make interiors sing. And sometimes that material is not available. Sometimes you have to tweak it, you have to invent it. Sometimes you have to work with people to do that. And for our own studio in Hong Kong, which is, this is a video of Rice. She's also from our team. She's traveling to Dongguan to look at the production of some glass that we've put in place. And we have recently moved our studio to the ground floor, street level of Hong Kong. And I just want to highlight that by saying that is not an easy decision. That means welcoming mice, cockroaches, rain, there's just a whole slew of stuff to deal with versus being in like a nice wire building where you have like AC and like internet routed in. So figuring out the skin between our building and the designers who are working was of tantamount importance. Basically, we wanted a material that would allow sunlight in so that we could work on materials, we could see the honesty of materials within the space. But at the same time, all the sok-soks and people kind of milling about outside the studio, they're kind of prying in. So the fact that this material has a dappled effect to it, but it also has this embossed layer to it, really means that we can control the amount of translucency. So that's the beauty of the material that we worked on for our studio. And I'm showing you this image here because for our name card, actually, this is something I worked on 15 years ago, but the glass now kind of speaks to this card here. It was a perfume card that I first got from Dior or whatever. I was walking through the shopping mall, they handed me a perfume card, and I just thought, how cool would it be to have a constant reminder to the team that what we do on a daily level is two-dimensional. And of course, it translates into something 3D. But if we have if we put in the hard work and the talent, we can eventually speak to other senses, like smell, for example. So the glass, the name card, the embossed level, this is something that I think a constant reminder that even though we work on the two-dimensional level, having something, speaking to smell and kind of perfume cards, this is an interior that we worked on in London that is wafting in cigar smoke. It's a private members club for the Arts Club, and the clients came to us and said, we have a lot of members who just want to smoke, a lot of female members who don't have a place to go in London. They're very, very male-dominant kind of spaces. And we wanted to design the space. Yes, we also design animal habitats, by the way. So we, we modeled the whole space and this material selection after the character of a narcissistic monkey. So imagine the monkey, its movements dictating the scale and proportions of materiality and design. So there's a catwalk that actually goes around the whole space, which functions not only as privacy screens, but also the separation and a backrest between all of the different cigar smokers and members who come. We wanted to transport people to a place where it alluded to the idea that animals could exist in Cuba, which is where a lot of the cigar collection was from, without there being live animals, of course. So there's tobacco leaf tables, there's a lot of reflection acrylic rods where the animals and the monkey itself as it waltzes around could be reflected upon. And then seeing seeing itself, its own reflection, and how that can start to inspire the space. Another project I wanted to talk about, it's using material in a different way. It's seeing how we can manipulate light with materials. So this is a project that's just down in this building, Maison Beloud. The client came to us and said, we want to have French Riviera in our casino. And there's no natural light. This space feels like it is in the basement. There's no windows. And we're like, well, how are we going to achieve that? I think when you go to the space, you're not going to notice this, but there's a lot of raffia in there, which works really hard for us. I know materials are quiet things, but they do their job relentlessly in a quiet way, which is why I love them so much. The window, for example, the fenestration going into the space, it's slightly carved. It pulls light into the space. And when the light hits the raffia, it creates this incredible glow. Even though there's no natural light in this space, the ceiling, the way that it's lit, it really assimilates daylight. This is kind of our rendition of what French Riviera feels like in daytime. That raffia wrapping around the ceilings, and then also in elevation on screens. And when you start to pull materials and give them tension, mount them, support them in certain ways, and you start detailing them, it starts to place them in a certain time and a certain period and an aesthetic. And that's what makes it so exciting. So when you zoom out, there's no light specifically, no artificial light hitting the screen, but it helps reverberate light and transmit light through the space without there being windows. So these are devices of materials that I'm really fond of. And then you can see it kind of working hard in a different way here. On the pendant, on the left-hand side, you can see the same light in daytime perceived with the raffia wrapped around it, but at nighttime, when you have a light from within the material, when you're lighting it in a completely different way, it starts to feel very translucent. So we're also keen on showcasing materials and how they change from day to night. And that magic really happens when light filters through in unexpected ways. So this was nothing planned, but we had plants in and around the raffia, and when it's lit at night, it allows light to filter through to create this really dramatic effect. I want to go back to the beginning in the middle of this presentation to tell you why I do what I do. This is HSBC in Hong Kong. I was 8 years old when my mom brought me here. This is very Hong Kong parenting, by the way. To set up a bank account when you're 8 years old, this is and teach you about financial independence. So I was with my mom on a weekend. There were tons of people just enjoying the plaza. And I felt like one in a million, just going up this glass escalator for the first time, puncturing through this underbelly, I went from feeling like 1 in a million to $1 million. I mean, I was only putting in like a 50 Hong Kong dollar note in my bank account that day, but the scale of the space and the importance of how it made me feel was just transformative. And this is why I trained as an architect. I wanted to give people those experiences where you can feel humbled by a space. And I think the power of that is something that can come through not only at the scale of an architecture, not only in the nanoscale, but also in between. So not far from the HSBC bank building is the Pedder building, which is a historic building. And I think it's testament to the fact that materials can transport at every scale. When you go into this building, which has been left vacant for many years, Abercrombie & Fitch took it over, and it's been infamously empty for a long time. We opened this project just 2 weeks ago, but the idea of space horizontally and a release vertically was something that I wanted to take from that moment as an 8-year-old at HSBC. I want to take that magic and bring it into this space. So it's 3 stories of wine cellar, which has been broken through the slab of the Pedder building, something that took forever, by the way, to get through to the government in Hong Kong. But the fact that we were able to create this wine cellar is a feat of its own. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, wine cellars in Asia. So each floor is different. It's clad in different materials to evoke a different relationship to wine. So this first floor here is Le Clos, which is the cloisters. It celebrates the origins of wine being stashed away by the monastic culture. Imagine monks. And there's a lot of kind of, I won't show you the rest of the photos, but allusion to where wine kind of began. And then as you ascend to the second floor, change of materiality all over again. You can see the vitrine. This speaks more to French haute couture and how fashion houses have displayed jewelry, and there's a lot of French wines in here. I hung out with French people nonstop for about 12 months doing this project, so the Frenchness was just overload, and there's a lot of French materials featured in here as well. There's slate kind of on the columns, and then as you walk around the space, it really is, and then kind of wedding cake style. It converges at the very top to these trees, which is a Chinese restaurant. I should say that it's 3 completely different F&B concepts in the same building. So as you rise from floor to floor, your experience is transformed. I think it's that feeling of going through that escalator and arriving at something so unexpected. You could be dressed in whatever. You could be 5 years old. You could be 80 years old, but that feeling of delight, it should transcend however you've come as, and equally kind of make you feel like $1 million. Like you can do anything. I mean, this is those 3 levels of wine cellars stacked, and as you circumnavigate around the different wines, you have a different relationship to them as well. Kind of this dramatic back wall on the first level. The second level, you're walking and appreciating the wine. And then on the top level, you're circumnavigating around these trees, which are also the champagne, the bubbles rising to the top. So there's a lot of allusion to lightness and finally arriving. For this project, we did something for the first time that we normally don't do, which is thinking about the world beyond just interior design. I should say I started as a website designer. And really, it's about creating these worlds that really, really interest me. Batard means bread. It's a type of French bread. It's also a winery in France, but it also means something very naughty in French. So we developed this character, Mr. Batard, who is drunk. He's a piece of bread. And that character, his sort of tongue-in-cheekness comes through in different aspects of design. And this is where we had a lot of fun. This is a mosaic, which is featured. We're getting photographs of this project done. So you'll see kind of the mosaic design here. This is a Miro rendition of Mr. Batard's body kind of like splayed all over the floor, lines of him kind of being drawn onto mosaic. And then a more subtle rendition of him in a trompe-l'oeil moment on the walls of wall covering. But I want to speak to kind of the fun that we have with all the endless possibilities of keeping this consistency of his personality and bringing that across through materiality. And then finally, the world can actually leap beyond the interior and start traveling into the outside of the space when people buy a bottle of wine and they carry it outside. So Mr. Batard starts walking in Central and Hong Kong. This is also another project in Hong Kong, and I added this in last minute, actually, because we won an award for it. And I thought we have to speak about this project. This is Karna, which is at the Mondrian in Hong Kong. I think it speaks to the diversity of the work. We're always open-minded about the types of materials that we use. So we found ourselves working with Watts of Westminster, which is a very old school English weaving brand that weaves materials that would be fit for a pew for a church, for example. This is a steakhouse by Dario Cecchini, and he's all about paying tribute to the cow before it arrives, how he butchers the cow, how he prepares the meat, nose to tail eating. And so there's an allusion to religious architecture, bringing elements of places of worship into the space so that when you're dining there, there is this very strong emotion of respect, of feeling humbled that we wanted to bring across. And then finally, another kind of narrative spoken through the material of glass. This is a stained glass that we've specifically developed for this project. It's 3 movements of how Dario kind of prepares the meal. There's the harvesting, the feasting, and then also the gathering. So playing to, again, the stained glass in religious architecture and bringing that in a modern way, essentially, into the space. You can see kind of how all the materials come together in this space. We've referenced flooring from the Pantheon, for example, the stained glass that you'll see here. And I think for this project, it was really fun to see Dario actually come and occupy the space. So much of what we do is the environment, but when the chef came in, he really enlivened the space. He was working in there like his home. This is, we prepared food. These are the elements that enliven it. And for us, the interior really is just the backdrop to facilitate all of that movement. To see Dario kind of happy in the space, preparing food was just a joy. And then from looking at materials that manipulate light, looking at materials that are designed for monkeys, here we're looking at something that so I went from architecture to interiors because I love color. And this client just said, we love black. And we want to design for people who work out a lot in the gym. This is Equinox, Hudson Yards. This is a train track. So the entire building is built above these train tracks, I should add. This is KPF's building. And I wanted to show this project because the material selection was very much driven by the architecture itself. When you look at the building, the rhythm that you see of material placement, it starts to insinuate movement. So there's nothing really more appropriate than using material that can provoke people to move more for this 20,000 square foot gym that we were working on. And we're really painting the space with, because I had no color, I really had to paint the space by using rhythm of material. And Generally, when we work with patterns, for example, that carpet has a natural rhythm to it. But here we were using lots of blacks, and brown was maybe the only other color we were allowed to use. But you can see kind of the rhythm of it and how it can start to inspire movement around a staircase, for example. And I have a lot of respect for Equinox hotels. They put previously what used to be the least desirable of spaces, like a gym down in the basement, they put 20,000 square feet of prime real estate looking over Hudson Yards, Thomas Heatherwick's sculpture for the gym and for the spa. And we started to paint with materials through usage of the rhythm that it creates. Painting it with lines. This is a tile that we've added to consciously break up this marble wall and have it travel through the changing rooms area all the way into the shower. And then you can see the repetition of materials starts to create something that aspires to movement all the way into the indoor pool area. This is a custom tile that we've developed specifically for the indoor pool. And as you're swimming, the movement of that tile starts to flow with you. And then all the way to the spa, there's also a rhythm of movement of materiality, except it's slightly softer. The rhythm is a little bit slower. And I think just painting with materials and creating this rhythm was something that we had a lot of fun with, all the way into the treatment rooms. And I wanted to show this image because nowadays, spa is not only about slow treatment, like you're not just getting a massage, kind of like zoning out in a room. With Equinox, there's also, it's all about maximizing your time. So if you had 10 minutes, you should be able to get a treatment. And this is a treatment pod alongside a corridor. And there is a repetition of material. You'll see that rhythm outside, but as soon as you get into this pod, we've stopped that repetition. You'll see the image on the right. You're in that pod. The slats don't come through. It's a quiet kind of backdrop. You have a framed view to Hudson Yards, and this is where you get your IV drip, your CBD oil, 10 minutes in and out. They've really reinvented the idea of wellness. And we're so happy to have been part of that journey of kind of reinventing that with them. I think, so I want to go back to this image. This is what I'm used to. This is the environment that I'm from. I'm from Hong Kong. Urban, repetition. There's a lot of kind of predictability of architecture. There's a rhythm to things. And then I found myself a year ago in Aubusson in France. And there's really nothing predictable about it. You're not going to find any buildings with a rhythm of slats alongside it. If anything, it's just a lot of blurred lines and stone walls and unpredictability. And I remember my first night at the hotel. There's no hotel. It's a room in an old townhouse. There was no air conditioning, so I had to sleep with the windows open. And there's this balminess to the air. There's moss on the rocks, on the stone wall. There's lichen and this dew. And I think what brought me here was Pinton. They are 1867. Since 1867, they started working with the likes of Picasso, Calder, translating their work into tapestry and carpets. And they've wanted to, they spoke to us because they wanted to evolve their brand into doing kind of more modern designs. And I want to say sometimes materiality is invented through collaboration with others. We wouldn't be capable of doing this without somebody like Pinton. Nobody spoke English, by the way, in Aubusson. And we, not only was I felt very much like a fish out of water. And the most exciting thing that happens there is, I think Tour de France goes near the town, not through it. But I was there to develop a carpet collection. Somebody who came from predictability, big sort of Hong Kong. I wanted to capture that balminess, that blurred line of undefined and this kind of intangible aspect. So I looked back to the walls of Aubusson, and we started developing artwork inspired exactly by those walls that I saw in the town. And we found a material that Pinton had not worked on before in their hand-tufted and hand-knotted carpet collection, which is mohair. And mohair, by nature, it has no defined edge. It has this cloudy, sort of undefined quality to it. And what I really love about it is it starts to blur these edges. And we went to the extent of also developing a fabric with them, which is jacquard, to celebrate the lichen and the moss and the dew that exists, that sort of intangible layer. This is the launch of that carpet collection in Maison Objet last month. And Secretary Young, and I love this photo because it reminds me, I shouldn't say this, but he reminded me of my dad. I mean, he's like, you know, an Asian guy, and he is supporting design, but he probably doesn't know the extent to which how the rug was created. And at least with my dad, he's like, well, what do you actually do? But I think with materiality, the fact that he was able to be there in person and look at the rug, touch it, all of a sudden, not speaking English or, you know, dad from Hong Kong, you start to bridge those gaps of, even though he's never been to Aubusson, I think the most rewarding part for me is if I can capture that, a tiny bit of that intangible joy that I had on visiting Aubusson and bringing this rug to someone who's never been, that would have been a success. So really material can transport at all scales. And to conclude, I'd say material to me is memory. They're like my friends. They help remind me of things that I've forgotten about. And more so than that, they can really bridge cultural and language barriers. So I hope, if anything, this talk has made you feel I'm less of an oxymoron. Somebody who loves kind of art and science can coexist. And if I'm tending my garden in the material library, this is an image that I wanted to leave with you to kind of better understand where I'm from and where I want to go. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Joyce. That was fantastic. I think we've got a few minutes for Q&A if anyone has any questions or something they would like to ask. I always tend to be the one that goes first with the big mouth. Do you have any little secret tidbit you can tell us about an upcoming project? Everybody always wants to know.
Oh, let me think. What can we talk about?
With the non-disclosure in place, so we can't say what it is anyway.
Upcoming project that we can talk about. We are... Oh, yeah. Well, in London, we're about to launch... I used to work for Norman Foster, and he renovated Whiteley, which is kind of on par with Selfridges. It's also a department store. And Foster's kind of took the historic facade, ripped out the back, and put in residences run by Six Senses. So we're working on a commercial residence that will launch next week. So that's super exciting for us. Nice. Because yeah, it was an ability to work on something residential versus hospitality.
Excellent. And what about a material that you've been dying to use or researching that you've never gotten to use yet?
Oh, so many.
I've got tons of questions if you want.
Dying to use. There is a section in our material library that we're dying to use. It's always, I think I could go on. I mean, some of the ones that are memorable, we've used this salt-dyed timber veneer from Berlin that has an amazing quality to it. It's just been soaked in salt, and the pattern that it forms as a result of that is incredible. There's kind of this material that has like pressed flowers that's been preserved within it that we really love to use. And Material Assembly, this is a brand that does a lot of kind of upcycled materials. Yeah, yeah, somebody that we hoping to work with as well.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? Lee? Okay, all right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
That was fantastic. We really appreciate it. Big round of applause, please.